All right, 6.5. Find an equation for a line given the slope and a point. So what we need to do here is we're going to find equations of a line. In order to find equations of a line, we need to have two things. In this section, we're going to be talking about finding an equation of a line given a slope and a point. So those are the two items we're given. Example 1. Find the equation of a line with a slope of 1/2 and passes through 1,5. What is this question asking? Well, we need the equation of a line. Does it matter which form? It doesn't say whether we need to put it in standard form or slope-intercept form. So, in this case, we could have acceptable either or. But, in order to get that equation of a line, we will start with slope-intercept. We have the slope, but we don't have the y-intercept. So we need to find the y-intercept. To do that, we need to sub the slope m equals 1/2, so the slope value for m, and the point we're going to sub for x and y, and we're going to sub it into the equation y equals mx plus b. The reason we're going to do this is this will give us the equation once I substitute these values. So y is 5 equals m, which is 1/2, times x, which is 1, so 1/2 times x, 1/2 times 1, plus b. So again, the y value, we sub 5, so 5 equals m is 1/2, that's what we sub here, x is 1, which we sub here, plus b is what we're looking for. So what do we get? We get 5 is equal to 1/2 plus b. So now what we need to do is find out b by itself. To find b by itself, we need to move this over to the other side. So move the 1/2 to the other side. 5 minus 1/2 will give us 9/2. Those of you wondering how we got that? Well, it would be 5 minus 1/2 is equal to b. And then, if you're thinking about it, we want to find a common denominator, so we say 10/2 minus 1/2 will result in the answer of b equals 9/2. But remember that you can use a calculator to get the answer as well. Next, we found the b value. Are we done the question? Well, the question says find the equation. So let's write out the equation. Therefore, the equation is y equals 1/2 x plus 9/2. Now, let's say the question was to say, find the standard form. So I was to change this question and write standard form. Find the standard form equation. Well, folks, in order to put it in standard form, we need to change this y equals mx plus b to standard form. Let's do that. Step 1 to change it to standard form is to multiply each and every single term by the lowest common denominator. Common denominator here is 2. So we're going to multiply everything by 2. We get 2y is equal to x plus 9, because 2 times 1 divided by 2 is 1x. 1x is just x, plus 2 times 9 divided by 2, so 2 divided by 2 is gone. We're left with just 9. 2y is equal to x plus 9, and we move everything to the side where x is positive. That will give us x minus 2y plus 9 as our final answer in standard form. So this last part is our equation in standard form. Just so that you have the form, both sets of equations. Now, a reminder again, at the beginning of this question, the way it was set up without the word standard form, you would have to do the equation, find the b value, and plug it into y equals mx plus b. To put it into standard form, you would have to take the y equals mx plus b form, so you would have to do exactly the same steps as we've done here. But now with the standard form, what we want to do is convert it. So we convert it by multiplying by the lowest common denominator and then moving to the side where x is positive. Okay, moving on. Example 2. Determine the equation of the line shown. So here's the equation, here's the line, and you're given this information right here. Okay, that's all you're given. Well, to determine the equation, we need a slope and a y-intercept. Notice here, our y-intercept isn't a nice number, so we can't use that to determine it. What we can say is that it's definitely between -2 and -3, but we don't know what value that is. So we need to use points that we have that are exact in order to determine the equation. First thing to do, determine the slope. Second step, determine the y-intercept, or a point. We need two pieces. We need a slope and a point, or the y-intercept. In this case, we can find the slope by taking one point and going to the next point. So we will rise 3 and run 2. We will rise 3 and run 2. So our slope is going to be rise 3, run 2, run 4. Why is it run 4? Look at the scale down here on the bottom, folks. Some of you might have been tricked like I was, that it might be run 2. But in this case, looking at the scale, each of these blocks goes by 2. So going across means that we ran 4. So the slope is rise over run, and that will give us 3 over 4. So that is our slope. Next part is to find the y-intercept, or a point. Well, we can use a point, which is easy to do, and we're going to use the point 6, 2. Could we have used any of the other points on this line? Of course we could have. We could have used this point. We could have used this point, or we could have used this point. We chose this point, 6, 2. And we're going to plug in. We're going to sub m equals 3 over 4 and the point for x and y into the equation y equals mx plus b. Y is 2, so let's go over this again. Y equals mx plus b. What we want to be able to do is substitute it. So we're going to sub y is 2 equals m, which is 3/4, times x, which is 6, plus b, which is what we're looking for. So 2 is equal to 18 over 4, which will reduce itself to 9 over 2, plus b. So now we have that. We need to isolate for b, so it will be 2 minus 9 over 2. 2 minus 9 over 2 will equal our b value. That will result in a value of -5 over 2, which is about -2.5. And remember earlier, we had said it's between -2 and -3. So we know that the b value is equal to -5 over 2. And now we can find the equation. What's the equation of this line? Well, the equation is y equals 3/4 x minus 5 over 2. Let's go back. So y equals 3/4 x minus 5 over 2. Now some of you might have been wondering what this was. Remember earlier in the previous example, I showed you how to do this math without using a calculator. You need to find a common denominator for 2, which will be 2, and so it will be 4 over 2 is equivalent to 2, minus 9 over 2, so 4 over 2 minus 9 over 2 would result in -5 over 2. When we plug it into the equation, we get y equals 3/4 x minus 5 over 2. All right, the next example. Example 3. Find the equation of a line that is parallel to x minus y minus 6 and passes through the point 3, 7, and perpendicular to y equals 3x minus 2 and passes through the origin. All right, so what we need to do here is we have to understand what happens. So we need to find the equation of a line in both these cases. In the first case, we're going to find the equation of a line that's parallel to this and passes through this. So we need a slope and a point. We have our point, but we don't have our slope. Well, or do we? Well, remember, there's a definition about parallel. Remember that parallel means that they share the same slope. So both lines, this line and the line that we're looking for, share the same slope. What does that mean? Well, let's look at that other one. Perpendicular means that the slopes are negative reciprocals of each other. So this is what you have to remember. So one more time, what we remember here is that parallel means that the slopes are the same, and perpendicular means the slopes are negative reciprocals. This is what we have to remember in order to get the answer that we're looking for. So this isn't the math, this is what we're remembering. The math here, folks, is we have to find the slope. Find the slope of the parallel line. The slope will equal, and to put it into slope-intercept form, first, and that means make y by itself. By moving the y over, you get x minus 6 is equal to 0. So x is equal to y, because we're moving it's minus y over here. We want to move the minus y over to the other side. It became positive. What we'll be left with is x minus 6. That's on the left side. On the right side is y. That means that the slope for this parallel one is going to be m is equal to 1. Well, what does that mean about parallel slope? Well, parallel slope means that the m is equal to also 1. Because remember that parallel lines share the same slope. Now that we've done that, we can find the equation. We sub m equals 1 and the point 37 for x and y into the equation y equals mx plus b. What's y? Y is 7 equals m. What is m? M is equal to 1. So 1 times x, x is 3. 1 times 3 plus b. 7 is equal to 3 plus b. That means b is equal to 7 minus 3, which means that b is equal to 4. So we have our b and we have our slope that we found earlier. So our equation is going to be this equation is going to be y equals 1x plus 4. And that is the equation of the line that is parallel to this and passes through the point 37. Let's try the next one. Perpendicular to y equals 3x minus 2 and passes through the origin. Well, origin, we need to find the slope of the perpendicular line first. Our m is equal to 3 based on the equation right here. We already have it in slope-intercept form. Y equals 3x minus 2 is slope-intercept form. We have our m is equal to 3. That's where we got m is equal to 3. And we need to now find the perpendicular m. That is the negative reciprocal. So if m is positive 3, we want the perpendicular m to be negative, definitely, and flip the 3 and it will become 1 over 3, negative reciprocal. So we know that the slope is equal to m is equal to negative 1 over 3. What else do we know? Well, the origin is 0, 0, folks. Notice that the origin is also our y-intercept. That's right. Our origin is the y-intercept. That means that when we plug it in, it will be sub m equals negative 1 over 3 and b equals 0. So the equation is going to be y equals negative 1 over 3x and then nothing else. Plus 0, we don't put the plus 0, folks, because that would be redundant. So this time we were given the y-intercept and we just had to find the slope, which is pretty easy. Okay, folks. Well, that's the end of the video. Have a numerical day.